The British Empire, a sprawling behemoth, projected an image of power and prosperity. Yet this facade masked a sinister truth. Its foundations were laid in the blood and sweat of millions of enslaved Africans. The quest for wealth led the British to the Caribbean, a paradise transformed into a nightmare. Here, under the scorching sun, the brutal machinery of the transatlantic slave trade churned relentlessly. The Caribbean islands, blessed with fertile land, held the key to a lucrative prize sugar. This white gold, highly sought after in Europe, fueled the British Empire's insatiable appetite. To satisfy this demand, vast sugar plantations were established, demanding an endless supply of cheap labor. This demand was met through the barbaric trade in human beings forcibly transported from their African homelands. The sugar plantations of the Caribbean became gruesome symbols of exploitation, where enslaved Africans toiled under the whips of their overseers. The transatlantic slave trade stands as one of history's most horrific examples of human cruelty. It dehumanized and exploited, transforming human beings into mere commodities. Captured Africans were driven in chains to the coast, crammed into slave ships. Conditions aboard were deplorable. Disease spread like wildfire. Survivors, broken and crushed, were sold to the highest bidder. The sugar industry, built upon the backs of enslaved Africans, fueled an economic boom that transformed Britain. The insatiable demand for sugar in Europe turned this once luxury good into a staple, lining the pockets of British merchants and plantation owners. The profits from this trade flowed back to cities like London and Bristol, financing grand estates, bustling ports, and a burgeoning middle class. London, the heart of this British Empire, pulsed with the energy of newfound wealth. The docks teemed with ships laden with sugar, tobacco, and other colonial goods. Merchants grew fat on the profits, investing in new industries and expanding their influence. Elegant townhouses sprang up, showcasing the opulent lifestyles of the sugar barons. Bristol, another major port city, thrived on the transatlantic slave trade. Ships departed its harbour, carrying manufactured goods to Africa and returning with their human cargo destined for the Caribbean. The British Empire's economic and social landscape was reshaped by the sugar industry, forever intertwined with the legacy of slavery. While the Caribbean islands were being exploited for their sugar riches, another struggle for dominance was unfolding thousands of miles away. In the vast, resource-rich lands of North America, Britain found itself locked in a bitter rivalry with France for control of Canada. Both empires recognized the strategic importance of this territory with its lucrative fur trade and access to vital waterways. The struggle for Canada was not just a clash between European powers, it also entangled the lives of the indigenous peoples who called this land home. Native American tribes were drawn into the conflict, forced to choose sides and often suffering the consequences. The 7 Years' War, from 1756 to 1763, proved decisive in the battle for Canada. The British, with their superior naval power and strategic alliances, emerged victorious. The Treaty of Paris in 1763 formally ceded Canada to Britain, marking a turning point in North American history. The British Empire, enriched by the blood and sweat of enslaved Africans, projected an image of invincibility. However, beneath the surface of imperial might, cracks were beginning to appear. The Caribbean, the heart of the British slave system, would become a crucible of resistance as enslaved Africans rose up against their oppressors. The brutal realities of plantation life, the constant degradation and denial of basic human rights, fueled a burning desire for freedom. From the early 18th century, slave revolts erupted across the Caribbean islands. These uprisings, often brutally suppressed, were a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who refused to accept their enslavement. The Caribbean revolts, though ultimately unsuccessful in overthrowing British rule, exposed the inherent instability of the slave system. They highlighted the moral bankruptcy of an empire built on exploitation and fueled the growing abolitionist movement in Britain.